Next, we'll turn to item 2 on our today's calendar. This is SB 47 by Senator Hill, the Environmental Health Synthetic Turf Bill. Good morning, Senator. Please begin.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Thank you. I want to start by thanking all of the people who took the time to travel here this morning to participate in our democratic process. I've had an opportunity to meet with some of the committee members about the bill, and I'm sensitive to the concerns you raised and the issues that are detailed in the analysis. In addition to the amendments mentioned on page 6 of the analysis relating to clarifying amendments for the OEHA study and the prohibition of state subsidies for turf fields and playground surfaces until the study is complete, I'd like to offer another amendment to further address the concerns raised in the excellent analysis dealing with the moratorium. Instead of an all-out ban on fields and playgrounds made from waste tires during the 2-year study period, I'm willing to allow for the continued use of these products under the following scenario and conditions. That the school or local government would first have to do 3 things. 1, bid specifications for the field or playground would have to contain at least one option for an alternative product that does not contain waste tires. Second, that the school or local government would have to get at least one estimate for their field or playground project from a company that doesn't use waste tires in their products. Third, the school or local government would have to incorporate into an existing public meeting a discussion of their decision to install a turf field and provide an opportunity for public comment. Thousands of schools and local entities have installed turf fields throughout the state. It's allowed them to use fields year-round, save water, save money, among other benefits. But not all turf fields are made from the same materials. Many companies offer organic and non-toxic turf alternatives instead of crumb rubber from waste tires. These products don't pose the potential health risks, and they average 30 to 40 degrees cooler than waste tire fields. Here's a summary of some of the problems we've seen with waste tire fields. In 2009, the Los Angeles Unified School District and the City of New York banned waste tires from turf fields. In 2010, then Attorney General Jerry Brown settled a case with the nation's largest makers and installers of turf fields, requiring them to reduce levels of lead in their products. In January 2015, the Kentucky Energy and Environment Cabinet began redirecting crumb rubber grant allocations to other uses rather than continue funding applicants that used waste tires on playgrounds and on athletic fields. In February 2015, Montgomery County, Maryland, with over 1 million residents, approved a ban on waste tires in turf fields and instead required plant-derived materials for infill in future turf field projects. The opposition will bring their giant stack of studies this morning showing that waste tires are safe in fields and playgrounds. On Monday, the U.S. Today reported that at least 10 studies since 2007, including those by the Consumer Product Safety Commission and the EPA, have found potentially harmful lead levels in turf fibers and in crumb rubber. Other research has also shown potential health impacts. In a 2012 study published in Chemosphere titled Hazardous Organic Chemicals in Rubber Recycled Tire Playgrounds and Pavers, showed the high content of toxic chemicals in these recycled materials and found that uses of recycled rubber tires, especially those targeting play areas and other facilities for children, should be a matter of regulatory concern. A 2011 study titled An Evaluation of Potential Exposures to Lead and Other Metals as the Result of Aerosolized Particulate Matter from Artificial Turf Playgrounds concluded that synthetic turf can deteriorate to form dust-containing lead at levels that may pose a risk to children. The Swedish Chemical Agency found that waste tire crumb rubber contains several particularly hazardous substances and recommends that rubber granules from waste tires not be used in synthetic turf. And we have anecdotal evidence from the University of Washington women's soccer coach Amy Griffin, who has been keeping a list of athletes who developed cancer after playing on turf fields containing waste tires. So far, she has identified 126 athletes, 109 of which are soccer players. 10 were football players and 6 were field hockey lacrosse players who have developed different forms of cancer, including lymphomas, 51, leukemia, 19, brain cancer, 10, testicular, 9, sarcoma, 9, thyroid, 6, and many more. My hope is that the study required in this bill will provide us with the data that we can use to determine how best to move forward. What's unique and valuable about the study requirements in the bill are that for the first time, it will focus on impacts to human health from chronic exposure and ingestion to crumb rubber, including a biomonitoring component of that. We're faced with a dilemma of what to do during the next 2 years while we wait for the study results. I think the amendments I've discussed allow local schools and governments to make the final decision and determine which type of turf field is right for them. To summarize, here's a list of the amendments I'd like to and be willing to accept. Prohibit the state from providing school and local governments waste tire subsidies for 2 years until the study is complete. State funds should and could still be used on other waste tire diversion grant programs such as rubberized asphalt and the other uses that are currently for recycled tires. Clarifying amendments on the study language to make things clearer for OEHA. Clarifying amendments making it clear that maintenance of existing waste tire fields is okay during the 2-year study period. 3 requirements for schools and local governments instead of the moratorium. 1, bid specification must contain at least one non-waste tire alternative. Must get at least one estimate from a non-waste tire company, and public hearing to allow for public comment on the issue. So I'd like to introduce Casey Sullivan.
Can I have a clarification
yes,
on it? So I'm a local school, and I put out a bid, and I request an alternative to waste, and I don't get one. And so what do? You say I need a local estimate, so I do a bid, and nobody responds.
Well, if no one responds, then there's not much we can do with that. So
No, but I mean,
that
if crumb rubber people
respond, but no one else will respond to
a natural turf, but nobody responds. That's an alternative to the
crumb rubber.
And I'm in Modoc or someplace.
Yeah, that's a very good question. My sense would be that if they couldn't respond, then the public hearing would then be the deciding factor for the public to be able to comment on the use of crumb rubber over, there would be no alternative, and then they would revert possibly to regular grass turf or not move forward with the artificial turf. But I think that's a very good point, and we should listen there. If no bid is forthcoming, then we would have to, I believe, move forward with the bid process.
Okay, proceed with your witnesses.
Hi, my name is Casey Sullivan. I'm from Washington State. I'm a cancer survivor, and I submitted a letter in support of the bill on March 10th. I was featured in NBC's investigative unit report of the national story about crumb rubber and the impacts on cancer survivors, and I'm also on Amy Griffin's list. I was a soccer player as a kid from the age of 8 all the way through college, and I spent time coaching afterwards for 5 years. I have a NSCAA national goalkeeping license, and worked with community colleges and high schools and local premier and select traveling teams as a coach. And so I don't consider myself an attorney or a scientist to give my testimony today. I do feel like I have extensive experience from the goalkeeping perspective. And it was when I was a goalkeeper in college. I was 21 years old, and I was in great shape and had no family health history at the time of cancer, and was diagnosed with stage 4 Hodgkin's lymphoma. I had a tumor in my chest the size of a soccer ball in diameter, and received 6 months of chemotherapy and 1 month of specialized proton radiation down at Loma Linda University here in Los Angeles. It forever impacted my life, and to this day, I've got young kids, and I do worry about their health. I love soccer, and my kids, I want them to be able to play soccer. And in Washington State, there is a high propensity or higher prevalence of crumb rubber fields because it rains a lot in Washington, and so obviously that makes the economics more attractive to do that. I played on crumb rubber fields extensively leading up to my diagnosis, and if you would watch other interviews on the TV or on the online, I think you'd see a lot of other goalkeepers share their story that they accidentally ingest the crumb rubber as they're diving, and that as a goalkeeper, I wanted to share and point out that when we practice, we will do 30 to 50 dives to warm up, where we are just trying to get ready for a practice or a game to make sure that we're not going to injure ourselves for the most part. So during a practice, it's very common for us to dive close to 100 times on a crumb rubber type field. And when you dive, it kicks up the pellets and it accidentally gets in your eyes, your nose, your mouth, and you accidentally ingest it. So to my knowledge, none of the studies that have been done to date have focused this prevalently on the amount of exposure that goalkeepers face. And I think that's why you see such a high number of goalkeepers, soccer goalkeepers, on Amy Griffin's list. She began collecting the list just on a happenstance basis where she began to see this correlation and felt compelled to protect those that she cares about.
Thank you. Thank you. Next witness.
Hello, my name is James Towsley with Hellis Construction. We are a national turf manufacturer and construction company that produces about 150 athletic fields per year. For the past 9 years, we have been what we consider on the forefront of alternative infill systems. There are many options out there other than SBR rubber. There is elastomer-coated sands, EPDM, which is a new rubber product, a thermoplastic product, and most recently on the market for the past 3 years in the U.S., there is organic, plant-based organic infills. So all of these products have been there for quite some time. The European nations have been using them for many, many years. And we just wanted to touch on the fact that SBR is not the only option. As far as the SBR rubber goes, we see it. It's around the entire nation. There is many different types of SBR. We see manufacturers and suppliers that have very clean SBR. We see them that are very dirty. It all depends on their manufacturing process and whatnot. I've got a concern at this point in time, now that we're in about the 10th to 12th year of long pile height artificial turf, and these fields have been going in now. Now there's becoming a second life cycle on the SBR rubber that is becoming an issue. So initially you're putting the SBR in, now we have to take it out. Some companies are electing to repurpose it by putting it back in the field. So what you're starting to see in our industry is that you're getting 12, 15-year-old rubber that breaks down and is getting dirtier and dirtier and dirtier and breaking into those microparticles that you were speaking of more and more rapidly. So as far as our company is concerned, we're looking at it and it's becoming an issue, right? Because there's going to be more and more of these being replaced. So as far as stopping the problem from the front end standpoint on the secondary life cycle, we need to consider that also. I do not believe that there's currently any regulations for an entity to purchase a field and choose the SBR rubber that is used, other than what the specifier has said as far as the cleanliness of it or anything else. And this is where we run into a low bid process of jobs. A lot of dealers or manufacturers, they will go to the most inexpensive supplier that they possibly can and put in, subpar materials. So that's also another concern of ours. I've heard a lot about cost in the alternative materials, that it raises the cost of the project. So we've done studies on it from our personal experience, and you can really count on about a 4 to 9% increase on a total of the overall project to go with an alternative infill that is not a recycled rubber product. So on, I wanted to also touch base on those European nations a little bit more. They have done many studies in Europe, and due to health concerns, and I haven't seen the definitive testing personally, there is many nations that have moved away from the SBR rubber, and it's been a great benefit to them. Not only in, we're talking about the health aspects, but just the comfort levels, the environmental aspects of using organic, plant-based organic infills.
Great, thank you.
Senator Lemon. Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Manufacturer. If I understand you correctly, it is possible then to transition from an artificial field which uses crumb rubber fill to alternatives?
Yes, it is.
That does happen.
Yes, it is.
And how expensive is that process?
Right now, I mean, as far as a dollar figure goes, I'm currently doing a field, and we are extracting the rubber out, leaving the sand infill on the bottom, and replenishing it with an organic infill system. And it's a $120,000 charge in the state of California.
How would that compare to the original field installation itself?
The original rubber installation of it, you would probably be looking at that particular component of the job. You're somewhere around $60,000 for that whole process.
And what kind of life does the alternative have?
The alternative has slightly higher maintenance requirements. You need to replenish it as it biodegrades 3% to 5% each year. And typically we see those maintenance costs go from around $6,000 on an SBR rubber field. This is through our company's experience of our clients to $12,000 on an organic field.
And is the extraction of the crumb rubber 100%, or is there a residue left?
There is some residual in that process.
And are you seeing more and more of this transition?
Very much so.
Okay, thank you.
Let's hear from opposition. Excuse me. First, let's go other supporters of SB 49. That's right. Others support, please come forward. If I understand there may be quite a few people, if you could simply state your name, your position, and if you have something to add or you agree with the presentation, please go ahead, sir.
Good morning. Eddie Moreno on behalf of Sierra Club California in support.
Okay. Sir.
I'm James Sanborn. I have a PhD in chemistry from the University of California, Riverside. For 20 years with 2 state agencies, the California Department of Pesticide Regulation, the Office of Environmental Health Hazard Assessment. I assess human exposures to pesticides and mercury or chlorinated organics. This experience is relevant to S47 and human exposures to chrome rubber and artificial turf.
Thank you. Ma'am.
Hi, my name is Lynn Beeson, and I want to thank you for being at this committee and thank you all, and just say a couple things. One, my first time up here was a parent of a statewide parents organization 48 years ago on childcare, and also I really appreciate the opportunity since it's been such a long time since I've been up here. My daughter is a soccer player, she's 53 now, a cancer survivor also. My grandson plays. One of the things that I did when I was with the mayor's office in San Francisco for 28 years as staff at the mayor's first disability council when the grant money came to the city, and was amazed to hear the people from the disability community talk about allergies, sensitivities. I know so many people that are sensitive to this, and what really got me out of my retirement in my wheelchair, in a sense, was seeing my grandson playing on this and knowing it was wrong. I mean, you can smell it. If you can't put tires in a landfill, you know, there's a reason for it. And I'm sorry to say, and what I'm really excited to be here living half-time in Wyoming with fracking is how important your work is, and how grateful I am to the senator for doing something so reasonable as to ask for a 2-year study, a really short window, because I think a lot of us parents are faced with denial, fear, lack of knowledge, and there really hasn't been anything at this. I think not only do other states look to California and communities and cities and counties, but the world does. So in the face of FIFA Women and all the other things, and a lifelong advocate for women and children, I thank you. And I have a book for Hannah Beth Jackson on the history of childcare in California. Excuse me.
Thank you for that.
California was the only state in the Union that kept childcare open under the Lanham Act when it was closed. And right now, California is in the company of only 3 other states that have a state-sanctioned recycling program. So thank you for your time. And this is, there is a, for all of you, and if anyone else on the committee would like it, I'd be happy to get you one. I'm happy to be part of this history of childcare in California, and there's a center at the Rosie the Riveter Center where this book is, and you can see a center. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, in support of legislation SB 47.
Correct. My name's Kelly Watts. I've done corporate environmental studies with an emphasis on medical impacts for over 15 years. I've been specifically tracking and reporting on the synthetic turf industry in California for national media outlets and advocacy health organizations across the country. My intention today was to show video images addressing common misconceptions and misunderstandings regarding tire crumb. There's nothing quite like actually seeing the tire crumb flying up into the faces of children. In lieu of that, I provided a couple of handouts, which I think you have. One handout showing synthetic turf employees wearing protective masks and even rebreather masks as they spread the tire crumb on top of the plastic turf. Protective masks, which of course the children will not have. And secondly, images of the growing tally of children who have played in these chemicals and who have succumbed or are now fighting cancer. Significantly identical twins. Mackenzie Hicks, who regularly played in tire crumb, is fighting her second bout of Hodgkin's lymphoma, while her identical twin sister Molly, who chose to be a cheerleader, thus avoiding the tire crumb, is not. Molly, unfortunately, had to serve as a blood donor for her sick sister, Mackenzie. I offer this example because it's very easy to get caught up in the chemistry and the data and statistics and lose sight of the all too real human toll that we were talking about and just beginning to see manifest. For the sake of time, I want to address the synthetic turfs industry's ongoing campaign of misinformation and flawed reportage, but I would gladly do that subsequently. I would like to point out that I believe as a result of California's current drought, that California state representatives are currently considering a bill subsidizing residential synthetic turf. I'd like to note that these are 2 very different bills with unique issues. I've been asked here today to specifically address one particular point, the insufficiencies of the existing studies and reports regarding tire crumb. Municipalities that I interact with across the country tell me that to a great extent they base their decisions regarding the use of crumb on the reliability of reports that have been generated here in California. Former Lieutenant Abel Maldonado, Lieutenant Governor Abel Maldonado, made an attempt to get a credible study done by passing Senate Bill SB 1277 in 2008, only to be thwarted by underfunding and poor methodology. He himself called this study unacceptable and incomplete. And in fact, the lead scientist from OEHA of the study admitted that the methodology used could not, among other things, accurately measure the volatility of the tire crumb chemicals. That same year, San Francisco's Synthetic Fields Task Force generated a questionable report, and later in 2011, San Francisco generated its one and only environmental impact report on tire crumb that's currently being disputed in the California Superior Court. These reports, in turn, relied substantially on the findings of a 2007 California Integrated Waste Management Board study, a 2009 OEHA study, and a 2010 California Department of Resources Recycling and Recovery study. Unfortunately, buried in every one of these California reports are significant flaws. The 2000 report acknowledged assumptions regarding the risk. The 2009 report acknowledged at least 41 data gaps to prevent an accurate assessment, and the 2010 reported over 47 significant data gaps. But perhaps the most troubling shortcomings is that every single one of these California reports, every single one failed to mention the OEHA 2003 finding, Prop 65 finding, that the primary chemical found in tire crumb, a chemical that makes up over 25% of tire crumb, was found to be a chemical, quote, known to cause cancer. Not one of the reports even mentions this information. But I personally believe that the core flaw of each one of these California reports is that even when the reports clearly demonstrate toxicity, we repeatedly see an anonymous hand from a planning department or some other position bypass a medical physician's scrutiny when assigning a summary of determination. And as we know, unfortunately, the summary is the only section of the reports that many decision makers even bother reading. Today's synthetic turf lobbyists, who we see feverishly generating their own reports and posting press releases, gladly cite these sections. My concluding point is that the good news is that OEHA does not need to go it alone. I can personally attest for the record that supporting this bill today are passionate and experienced individuals from the National Institutes of Health, from the Center of Disease Control and Prevention, along with groups such as Environmental Health, Human Health Incorporated, Centerf.org, the Center for Environmental Health, Safe Healthy Playing Fields Coalition, Public Employees for Environmental Responsibility, Sierra Club, and many others. These players in this bill before us today offers an opportunity for the state to be able to redress the shortcomings of the health risks.
Thank you. Thank you. Others who, if you have a written statement, you can give that, and that will be incorporated into our record today. Ma'am, go ahead.